you want to be successful, especially within division play like this, is not to lose 2 games in a row. You got to have that mindset of obviously trying to get a string of wins together. And if you can't do that, then it's almost trying to get back on the winning track as quick as you can and kind of forget about what happened the game before.
We'll go next to Mitch Clinton from Jets TV. Go ahead, Mitch.
Hey, Paul, just curious what you're expecting from Montreal tonight, the only team that you haven't played this season.
Yeah, I mean, they're fast. I think they're a really well-rounded team. I think if you look at their D-core, they got some good players out there. They got some size, physical, and then their forwards are, they can play 4 lines and they produce a lot. So I think for us, it's trying not to feed their transition game and kind of try to play in their D zone, try to play them, kind of below the hash marks and make them play defense. And I think when you play teams like that, whether it's a Montreal or Toronto, where their weapons are, but as much as you're focused on not giving stuff, you want to kind of worry about what you can do as your game plan and kind of worry about that. Paul does a good job of kind of focusing on things that makes us successful instead of things that won't make the other team successful, if you know what I'm saying.
We'll go next to Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weber.
Thank you, Gregor. Morning, Paul. You've been part of a couple coaching changes. Maybe can you compare those situations and what you saw from your teams in those instances?
Yeah, it's always kind of it's like a shock. It's a breath of fresh air. It's kind of mixed emotions, because obviously every time there's a coaching change, as players, you kind of take it on yourselves that if you're playing better, the coaching change doesn't, happen. Sometimes it's nice to get a new voice. Sometimes it's more of a wake up call. I feel like, especially when you have a good team and, Montreal is a good team. I think in St. Louis it happened to us where same thing happened. I think when Hitch got let go and Yossi came in, and it was more of a kind of a wake up call to the players more than anything sometimes. And unfortunately, sometimes the coaches kind of, get the short end of the stick. But as a players, I think it kind of wakes you up. So we're expecting, Montreal to have kind of new lease on life with a lot of energy and be ready to go at night.
And we'll go next to Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Paul, just understanding how much work is involved, in this craft. Just wanted to know what you thought about a guy like Neil Pionk completing his university degree at the same time and balancing all these hockey expectations and responsibilities.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I'm jealous. I think it's smart. I think I've always told myself or told my family or my kids that I'm going to finish, school eventually. So, he's got a leg up on me. But yeah, I think, especially I think he was close. I don't know how long he's been doing it, I don't know if he went 3 years at school or 2 years, but the fact that he didn't stop, I think the hardest part is when you get away from it, it's kind of getting back in. Once you're back in, I think then, it's easy to keep it going. But it's nice. It kind of keeps your mind off. I think sometimes, especially if we're on the road, we got a lot of time. I think when we're traveling, we're at home, there's not much to do, because it's just hockey and you're kind of staying indoors and then just playing it safe. So I think being able to obviously educate yourself is always, important as a person and keep growing as an individual. But at the same time, get your mind off something and you get to focus on something else you love. So jealous, and I got to congratulate him.
I'll go back to Paul Friesen. Go ahead, Paul.
Paul, you mentioned the new voice in coaching changes, and that's what Montreal's GM said too about Claude Julien's dismissal. He just thought the players needed a new voice. Can you kind of expand on what that means and how a guy like Paul Maurice lasts? How does that work?
Yeah, well, I think that last part, like you said, I think you got to constantly adapt. And, there's some coaches that do a good job with a kind of short-term fix. They can turn things around immediately. Those kind of come in, with the mindset to win right away. Then there's coaches that turn around eventually. You can only go so far, and then you kind of need that last little push. But I think other coaches that have done it for a long time, they do a good job of evolving and adapting. And whether it's a guy like Paul who's been around and talks to other coaches that have been fired, or talks to other coaches that have longevity, they kind of see how they've changed a little bit. Or, someone like Claude Julien who, like I said, just been fired, I'm sure we'll learn from this and change something, if there's something that had to be changed, or if it was just, time ran out and time ran out. I think the way the game is now compared to, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. It's a whole different mentality. The way you kind of interact with the guys, the way you treat them. The mental part of the game is very different than when it was when I came in the league and the way I grew up. And, I've learned to change like that. I think that's, old school versus new school mentality. And I think Paul does a good job of kind of finding that buffer, whether he can relate to certain guys or whether he has to go through Wheeler, who has to go through Shipe, who has to go through a younger guy, different ways like that of doing it. So it's fun. I think it's fun kind of adapting with it and kind of hearing what other guys do in other professions and reading what other people do. And you kind of just learn to evolve like that.
Just a couple more for Paul. We'll go next to Kelly Moore from CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hey, Paul. I don't know how much of the video has shown it, but when you look at Montreal's stats, what really jumps out is their 5-on-5 play. They're plus 17 in the goals for and against column. Does that show up on the video preparation as well? And if so, what is it they're doing so well 5-on-5?
I don't think. That's talked about. I think. When you see that, that's when you got a good team. That's when you got a balanced lineup. 4 lines that can score at you. Different guys are chipping in, but and they're not just kind of relying on special teams. So I think when you see that, they're playing a good team game. They don't give up much, obviously, and they take advantage of their chances. So when you see that, obviously you got to bear down, obviously 5-on-5, but then it just shows you how important special teams is, in this game. Because if you, look up and down throughout the games. There's so many 1-goal games or 2-goal games, and if you look, one team's +1 or +2 on special teams, and that makes a difference. And whether it's regular season playoffs, it's kind of always been like that. And that's why, you can't just rely on one part of the game, but that's why all the parts of the game kind of come together, and just shows you how important each factor is.
And final question to Ken Weaver from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
I'll just, what are your early impressions of the Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers combination platter that you're with right now?
Yeah, it's been good. I think put us together like 3 games ago, and I think like I said, I thought in Edmonton we had a ton of chances, even in Van, and talking to those guys sometimes, I think you kind of get frustrated if you're not scoring, but sometimes you just got to tell those guys all it takes is one bounce, and one bounce or one goal or one, and all of a sudden everything kind of loosens up a little bit. And as long as you're creating the chances, as long as you're working for each other, and that's what happens is the more you're playing together, the more you realize. The more you move for guys, the more you make room for each other, I think, the better we'll all be. And I think that's what we're starting to do, starting to communicate more and watch video, kind of see what works and what doesn't work. And, I feel like it's coming along, and it's only a matter of time. So with those guys, I just told them to keep playing the game, just stay positive. Because, if you're not getting chances and you're kind of playing your heels, that's one thing. But, if you're getting those chances and, some bounces aren't going your way, that's fine. And, it's a long season. Eventually they're going to come and everything kind of evens out.